Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and Godzilla King of the Monsters hit theaters today in the United States. I fully recommend it. That movie was so much fun, as I refer to it as pure sex, in which case you can check out my review if you want. It will be linked in the comments section. But I want to talk a bit about the future of the Godzilla franchise, the future of the Monsterverse, and how there's something that might be a bit concerning happening, and I'm not too sure how to address it. So I'm just going to go through it in the best way that I can. But it all centers around Charles Dance and his character, Colonel Alan Jonah, who is the villain. Kind of the villain. Well, no, he is the villain of Godzilla King of Monsters. And it all boils down to the after credit scene. Now, there are going to be spoilers from here on out. You have been warned. So coming over here to Screen Rant, they go through and they break down the after credit scene. You can see here, Godzilla King of the Monsters after credit scene explained by Alex Ledbetter. Although this is not the original title of the article. In fact, the original title, and this is 100% true, was this: Godzilla King of the Monsters after credit scene brings back Ghidorah. How the hell is that not a damn spoiler right off the bat? But hey, they changed it, and they decided to update it because I think a lot of people got really mad at them for spoiling it, which you should. And Screen Rant, really, what the hell? Anyway. So this is what they say. Godzilla King of the Monsters post-credit scene returns to Isla de Mara, the site of Rodan's emergence earlier in the film. A fisherman leads a group of people later revealed to be led by Charles Dance's Jonah Allen, who escaped Boston before the big kaiju fight down a hallway, stating that they're in a brave new world following the rise of the king. He also reveals that following the oxygen destroyer's deployment by the US military in a bid to kill Godzilla and Ghidorah, they can't fish in the sea anymore. As shown earlier, there were a bunch of fish that were dead in the movie when it happened. And so they've turned to a more illicit methods of making money. The fisherman takes Allen and his crew into a large room that contains one of Ghidorah's heads, the one Godzilla tore off during the fight just off the coast, which he says will take it. Now, this was a great after credit scene. Like, it was like, oh, damn, son, because you know what comes out next year, right? Godzilla versus King Kong. In fact, during the end title sequence of the movie, they basically kind of allude to that. They start talking about Skull Island and what's going to be happening on Skull Island, and clearly setting up the whole thing in regards to King Kong fighting Godzilla because of, probably what's underneath Skull Island is kind of how I take it. But Charles Dance is clearly the villain of this movie, and he should be the villain of the next movie now that he's got Ghidorah's head, because really, if the Hydra can regenerate, they might use it as a way to make Mechagodzilla to then fight both, or then to lead into that final battle, right? So clearly you want him to be in it because he was a good menacing bad guy. Well, unfortunately, according to this interview with Digital Spy here, he says, I'm not in Godzilla v Kong. I'm not, to my knowledge. He explained, adding that he's not ruling out a return for his villainous eco-terrorist Colonel Alan Jonah in the future. Well, the thing with that is that, he's saying here, I'm not in it, which is crazy to me because they just wrapped up production on the film a couple weeks ago. They just wrapped up production on Godzilla v Kong in Australia. So that's just principal photography. They could be bringing him in at some point in time, or he could just not be saying anything. Predominantly because people haven't seen the end of the film yet, and they don't know that he has Ghidorah's head and could be doing something to help bring about the end of the world, which was his entire motivation. But looking into it a little bit more, and this is where I think that if they do not bring him in for this movie, if they do not bring him in for Godzilla v Kong, I think they're doing a massive disservice to the lore, to the world that they built, because the world building in Godzilla King of the Monsters was amazing. From Monarch to the Eco-Terrorists to the old legends to fucking Atlantis. I mean, like, there's a lot going on in that movie that is simply too cool for school. And I think that by not having this villain in the movie, as part of the Monsterverse kind of running things behind the scenes or doing something, they're doing themselves a disservice. But at the same time, they could be leading into what's going to happen post Godzilla v Kong. But from my understanding with that, Toho has only agreed to the contracts for the 4 films. or doing Godzilla King of the Monsters, and Godzilla versus Kong. Kong Skull Island is its own thing. But after that, then it's kind of up in the air, and I guess Toho wants to reboot everything. But I don't know. I don't know, but let's look through the Wikia for Colonel Alan Jonah here, which is kind of cool because this is what it says. It says Jonah was previously a colonel in the British Army and a special agent in the Secret Intelligence Service MI6 from 1990 to 2004. However, after living through many tours of duty in the service, he became disenchanted by mankind, so he defected and went rogue. Since then, Jonah had been connected to a team of armed mercenary units working behind the mask of socio-political deceit. In 2005, Monarch became aware of Jonah when he and his team of accomplice mercenaries were caught attempting to trespass into a subterranean Muto dig site, after which he was jailed in Pakistani prison. Sometimes later, he presumably escaped or was broken out of confinement. He's labeled a Class 1 eco-terror threat. His whereabouts are currently unknown. So just the history of this guy already sets him up as a badass villain. But there is actually a graphic novel that ties in Godzilla to Godzilla King of the Monsters called Godzilla Aftershock, and this is the premise. In 2014, a few months after Godzilla's return and his defeat of the Mutos in San Francisco, sorry, I should point out, this is Jonah's part in that story. Jonah is being held and interrogated at the American military base of Joint Regent Marianas in Guam. He's questioned for having an Australian passport, and he claims to have dual citizenship. Just then, the Muto Prime appears, unleashing devastation upon the base and giving Jonah a chance to escape. When Emma Russell, who was Vera Farmiga in King of Monsters, arrives to assess the damage, he stows away on her plane. As she boards, he ambushes her and holds her at gunpoint, ordering her to signal the plane's pilot for takeoff. Emma's colleague, Tarkin, appears and draws his gun, but Jonah tackles him and escapes. He later stalks Emma to Siberia, where he once again attempts to take her hostage. However, Tarkin has anticipated this and manages to capture Jonah after using Emma as bait. He then sends his men to hand Jonah over Russian authorities, but not before Jonah tells Emma that he will see her again soon. Emma is later informed that he had escaped Russian custody. Now, if you saw the movie, now there is a type of connection between the two characters. Now we know that there's an established connection. In the movie, Emma becoming disenchanted with Monarch and how they've reacted and how they've done things. She seeks out Jonah in order to devise a plan to unleash the monsters, the Mutos, in order to bring about the cleansing of the earth, to restore the balance. Not knowing Monster Zero or Ghidorah, the fact all his crazy stuff, that he's an alien and they all bow to him and everything else. But that was how they met. And that's an interesting backstory. That's an interesting backstory that ties in very well with this movie. And it should tie in with Godzilla v Kong, because we know that kind of in the abstract, Godzilla versus Kong is going to be two good guys fighting each other like Batman v Superman, where they ultimately have to team together to fight a greater threat. Now, Adam Wingard, who's directing Godzilla versus Kong, he had said that you're going to clearly have a winner and a loser at the end of the movie. And I'm not too sure what he exactly means by that, but it kind of does feel like they are teasing it's just going to be the two Titans and no one else. But I do think that could be a problem, where this could be a perfect time to introduce Mechagodzilla by having Charles Dance and having Colonel Alan Jonah come in and be the bad guy. And I'm making a case here that they should make this guy a big part of the film, because for one, he's a great villain, and two, he's a great actor, and three, it would just be interesting to the story. Now, unfortunately, that may not happen, because this is an interview I pulled, or a headline I pulled from Yahoo, that says Charles Dance struggled to stay awake watching Godzilla King of Monsters. So it says here that he gave a brutally honest statement of his latest film, Godzilla King of the Monsters, in a hilarious and frank interview. He says, "I had difficulty staying awake." The veteran Thesp told the broadsheet when asked about his response to seeing the epic blockbuster, before quickly adding, "No, I didn't say that. I mean, it's spectacular." And it's kind of weird. It's a difficult one to kind of take into account. I don't know if he's being sarcastic, but he also doesn't really mince words on other things he's been in. He even said that Game of Thrones had a bit of a confusing ending, and he was like, okay, even though he hasn't been on the show for a number of years. So he could be telling the truth, and he could may not want to come back. Now, in the same interview with Digital Spy, he did say that he just likes to work. He just likes to do big projects, little projects, whatever he can get. He's 72 years old, and it could be that he just didn't have a good time working on this movie, and maybe that's why they're not bringing him back, and they're going to replace him with somebody else. And I'm just going to say flat out that I believe that's a mistake. I believe that's an absolute mistake. You shouldn't do that. But then again, coming over here to the Rotten Tomato score, and this is from today, Godzilla is at 42%, down from the 53 when I looked at it, but its audience score is at 91%. And so that's going to be, I think a clear indicator to Warner Brothers, Legendary, and Universal for how to proceed forward with the Monsterverse, considering that the audience likes it, but it is only looking at about getting a $55 million opening weekend, which is not good. Not good considering that's a lot lower from 2014. But just because I wanted to talk a little bit for a quick second about Rotten Tomatoes here, take it with a grain of salt. This is still the Last Jedi score. 91% from critics and the audience score 44%. So take it all with a grain of salt when it comes to that. But really, at the end of the day, all jokes aside, Charles Dance as the villain was great. And he should be in Godzilla v Kong. He should be in the future of the franchise. He should be the person that they go to, because I think he brings a certain menacing nature about him, and his motivations are clear and they work. And yeah, I just wanted to make this video, to put this together. I wanted to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Is this something you want to see, you don't want to see? Let me know down in the comments below. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day. Please like the video and subscribe if you're new, and long live the king.